The first notification came while I was unclogging the bathroom sink. Drip. Buzz. 3 in a row. I wiped my hands on a dish rag and checked my phone, expecting something mundane, an update on a package, maybe a group text from my brother about fantasy football. Instead, I saw her name, tagged in someone's Instagram story. The screen loaded slowly. My Wi-Fi always chokes when I'm already tense. And there she was, laughing. Laughing like her world was new. Laughing like someone who had never once sat across from me during dinner and said she was just tired lately. Laughing with a man who had his arm around her like he'd earned it. They were sitting side by side at an outdoor table with white wine, glowing string lights, and something in her eyes that hadn't been there in years. She didn't look guilty. She didn't look conflicted. She looked happy. The caption wasn't hers. It was his. Late dinner after a long day. Worth it. Wineglass crescent moon. I didn't react. I didn't throw the phone. I didn't scream. I didn't even blink. I just set the phone face down on the toilet lid, pulled the wrench from the sink, and started dismantling the pipe like nothing happened. If you've never tightened something so hard your knuckles split open, I don't recommend it. But I needed the sound. I needed the pain. The second notification came 15 minutes later. Another photo. This time it was her account. Her legs across his lap. A beach in the background. Networking with the best white heart sparkles #grateful. I stood there, covered in black pipe sludge, staring at the woman who'd once sworn she hated the ocean. Grateful. There was no confrontation. No dramatic phone call. No angry comment. I just packed a duffel bag, walked out the door, and drove for 6 hours without a GPS. No map. No music. Just the hum of tires on asphalt and a question louder than all of it. What if I disappeared for once? What if I didn't beg? What if I didn't wait? What if I planned one vacation, just one, and let the silence answer for me? Because if she could post a new life while mine was rusting in the pipes, maybe it was time I stopped fixing things. I didn't crash at a motel or a friend's place. I drove to a quiet spot 2 counties over, a rundown lakeside campground that used to be popular before the main dock collapsed a few years ago. No one really came anymore. It was perfect. No reception. No expectations. Just mosquitoes, stale vending machine snacks, and the overwhelming awareness that I had become invisible in my own marriage. But here's the thing. Before I left, I made one decision I hadn't entirely thought through. I didn't tell her. I didn't say, hey, I'm going off the grid for a while. I didn't write a note. No dramatic exit. I just logged into her laptop. It was sitting right there on the dining table. Open. Glowing. Still on from the night before. She used it for work, sure, but she never logged out of anything. And I didn't have to snoop. Not really. All I did was click. The browser remembered everything. One tab was already open. An Airbnb receipt for a beachside condo for 2 in Santa Monica. The dates overlapped her business trip. The listing had 2 wine glasses staged on a balcony overlooking the shore. Romantic lighting. Handwritten welcome card in the sample photos. Perfect for couples, the description read. Another tab showed Uber ride history. All drop-offs were far from the hotel she'd claimed she was staying at. In fact, none of them were near the Tech Summit Center she'd told me about. The third tab was open to a photo-sharing drive. This one burned. There were over 50 images. Casual shots. A breakfast spread with 2 plates. His hand brushing hers across a marble counter. Her asleep on his chest in a hammock. Her in a swimsuit I'd never seen before, one I know she would have called too revealing if I'd suggested it. And then a folder titled, For Next Time 2 Hearts. I didn't open it. I closed the screen. Walked out. The worst part wasn't that she lied. Or even that she cheated. I'm not even sure what to call it yet. The worst part was that she didn't bother to hide it well. It was like she didn't think I'd ever bother to look. As if I'd just stay in my quiet little corner of the house forever, fixing pipes and asking how her day went while she built an entirely different life under fake hashtags and filtered sunsets. I wasn't angry. Not in the cinematic way. No yelling. No punching walls. I just felt used. Like a placeholder. Like a polite memory. That night, I sat in the front seat of my car under the stars, ate a crushed granola bar I found in the glove box, and made a list on the back of a gas receipt. It was titled, Rules for My One Vacation. No contact. No apologies. No explanations. One photo. One post. That's it. Make her notice. Without saying a word. This wasn't revenge. I'm not built for revenge. I'm built for silence. for slow consequences, for truths that settle like fog and never leave. In the distance, a loon cried. And for the first time in months, I let myself cry too. Not for her. For me. For the years I spent editing myself so she'd find me easier to love. And as I wiped my face on the sleeve of a shirt I hadn't changed in 2 days, I whispered to no one. Let's see how she handles being the one left behind. The moment I clicked post, I didn't feel empowered. I didn't feel free or strong or even clever. I felt like I was about to throw up. It was a simple photo. I had taken it that morning standing barefoot in a misty field just beyond the campsite. Sunrise bleeding through the trees. My car in the background, dirt-dusted and quiet. I stood next to it, a blurred silhouette holding a coffee cup, and in the caption I wrote, "One vacation. No lies. No filters. No pretending. No hashtags. No location. No smile." I didn't mention her. I didn't have to. Within 15 minutes, I got 3 messages. 2 from friends who hadn't heard from me in months. 1 from her sister. All vague and curious. Are you okay? Where are you? What's going on? She didn't message me. Not right away. Not even after an hour. I left my phone in the glove compartment and went for a walk around the abandoned side of the lake. There used to be paddle boats and a playground here. Now the dock was half submerged, the paint chipped off the old snack shack, and everything smelled like rotting leaves and mildew. It was exactly how I felt inside. Around noon, I came back to check the phone. My fingers hesitated before unlocking it, half of me hoping for a message from her, the other half bracing for silence. But there it was. One unread message. From her. It read, "Where are you?" Just that. No context. No explanation. No, "Hey," or "Are you okay?" I didn't answer. I powered the phone off. You know what's funny? For all the times I asked her how her day was, how her meeting went, how she was feeling, she rarely asked about mine. She never really wanted the truth, only the highlight reel. That's what I was to her, a quiet man with a stable job and predictable habits. A safe base camp she could return to after her adventures. I was never exciting, never loud, never dangerous. I was a bookshelf in the corner of the room, useful, but easy to forget. But now, she noticed my absence. I spent the rest of the day cleaning up the abandoned campground's old fire pit. No reason, just needed to do something with my hands. While stacking brittle logs, I found a folded tarp tucked beneath one of the benches. It had initials on it, J+M. Faded hearts drawn in marker. Someone had once been in love here. Or at least tried. That night, I laid on the cold tarp with a sleeping bag zipped halfway and stared up at the stars. The sky felt too big for the weight in my chest. My hands were filthy. My mind louder than ever. I kept asking myself questions I didn't want answers to. How long had she been meeting men like him? Was this her first conference romance, or just the first one she got lazy with? Had she ever looked at me the way she looked at him in those photos? I hated that I still wanted her to say sorry. I hated that part of me would probably forgive her if she did. But most of all, I hated that it took this, a digital betrayal and a lonely campsite, for me to realize I'd been living as a footnote in my own life. The fire crackled weakly, though damp, but I stared at it like it might explain something. And somewhere between midnight and the wind picking up, I whispered, "You don't get to post joy without consequences." She made the world believe her life was perfect. She posed and smiled and added just enough mystery to keep people curious. Now she'd have to wonder where I was, who I was with, what I was thinking. One vacation. That was the deal. Just one. And tomorrow, I'd post again. But this time, she wouldn't just be confused. She'd be terrified. It was around 3 a.m. when I turned my phone back on. I don't even know why I did it. Maybe some pathetic part of me was hoping for a second message from her. One with something that sounded human. Something more than just, "Where are you?" But when the screen came to life, there was no message from Cassie. No calls. No, "I'm sorry," or "Can we talk?" There were, however, 6 new DMs from people I didn't know. Most ignored. But the 7th one had a name I recognized, barely. Micah Turner. I met him once, 3 years ago, at one of those rooftop networking events Cassie dragged me to. He was the kind of guy who used words like synergy and alpha phase unironically. I remember he wore sunglasses at night and tried to pitch me on crypto when I told him I worked in a library. His message just said, "Didn't think you'd post something like that. Just thought you should know, she's been tagging along to that guy's events for months now. I unfollowed her a while ago, but she used to show up on his stories more than she did her own. Check this out." He sent a link. My stomach dropped before I even clicked it. My hands were cold again, my breath shallow. It was a highlight reel, the kind people put on Instagram to show their best moments. Except it wasn't Cassie's. It was his. The man from the rooftop. His name was Austin Laird. Entrepreneur. Travel coach. Helping people monetize freedom, according to his profile. Thousands of followers. Dozens of travel reels with glamorous women on boats, bars, beds. Cassie wasn't in all of them, but she was in enough. Not just in the background. Not just networking. Front and center. Her hand in his. Her head on his shoulder on a yacht. Dancing in a hotel suite wearing a black dress I'd never seen. A brief flash, him lifting her onto a counter. Her laughing. His lips on her neck. She didn't look reluctant. She didn't look drunk. She looked like she belonged there. I couldn't breathe. I turned the screen off. Turned it back on. Watched it again to make sure I wasn't seeing things. I wasn't. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't a slip-up. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This was a pattern. This man didn't just appear in her life on this one trip. She had been orbiting him for months, maybe longer. And me? I was a ghost she came home to. I don't know how long I sat there staring at that video. Long enough that the sun started to rise. The birds began chirping like nothing in the world was broken. I started laughing. Not because it was funny. Because it was ridiculous. I was worried about her feelings when I packed my bag. I hesitated to hurt her when I left. I was careful not to post anything too personal. But she? She had already cast me out of her story and replaced me with a man who made his living selling illusions. And now she was part of his highlight reel. Another smiling face on a fake vacation. So I made a decision. I took a new photo, just the edge of a canoe, drifting out on the lake. No face. Just water and sky and solitude. Then I added a caption. Unfollowed the noise. Best decision I ever made. This time, her message came quicker. Less than 30 minutes. Milo. Seriously? What are you doing? No apology. No explanation. Just panic. I didn't respond. But I clicked her profile out of curiosity. Her highlight reel? It was gone. She'd removed the stories. Scrubbed the tags. Unfollowed Austin. But it was too late. I'd already seen it. The internet doesn't forget. And the man she left behind, the one she thought was too quiet to notice, was finally wide awake. I had one more post to make. But it wouldn't be just a photo this time. It would be a memory. The kind that can't be cropped or filtered. The kind that stains. The silence was the loudest thing I ever gave her. It echoed in ways shouting never could. When I didn't reply to her second message, she waited 4 hours before sending a third. We need to talk. Please, can you just pick up? That one had more weight. A trace of anxiety. Not because she was sorry, not yet, but because she realized I wasn't acting like myself. The old Milo would have already called, apologized for acting distant, maybe even asked if he misunderstood. But I didn't call. I didn't text. I didn't even open the message. Instead, I started driving. Not home. I wasn't ready to see our house, her house now, as far as I was concerned. I drove north, into a part of the state we'd never been together. Forest roads gave way to cliffs. The air felt cleaner there, and for once, I wasn't thinking about how to fix anything. At a scenic overlook, I pulled over. There was this crooked wooden bench nailed into the stone wall. I sat there with a paper bag of gas station pretzels and just stared out at nothing. No phone. No music. Just the breeze in my own breath, shallow, but finally mine. You know what no one warns you about when you find out someone's been emotionally living a double life? It's not the betrayal that shreds you apart. It's how normal they act afterward. Like you're supposed to still play your part in the scenes they never stopped writing. Cassie had no clue how to handle being ignored. She thrived on being chased. She was the kind of person who'd fight just to see how far someone would run after her. But when the running stopped, she unraveled. At 6:03 p.m. that evening, I got another message. Longer this time. I don't know what this is supposed to be. Are you trying to hurt me? I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't cheat. I made a mistake with a friend. That's all it was. But what you're doing now is cruel. I can't fix this if you won't talk to me. That word fix. She used it like we just misplaced car keys or overcooked a dinner. As if months of flirtation, suggestive posts, and lying to my face could be patched with a phone call. But what hit me most wasn't the excuse. It was the fact that in her world, the worst thing I'd done was walk away. And that's when it really sunk in. She didn't miss me. She missed control. Back at the campground, I fired up the fire pit again. I had gathered some dry wood, and this time, the flames took. I sat in front of it with my phone and opened the Notes app. I started writing not a post, but a letter. One I wouldn't send. One meant only for me. It read, "You lied to me with your eyes first, then with your laughter, then with your words. You turned our life into background noise and didn't even mute me before you changed the song. But now you're alone in the silence you created. And the difference is, I'm not scared of it anymore. You are." The next morning, I uploaded a photo, the fire pit still glowing, ashes in the shape of something nearly gone. The caption, "Some things don't need to be fixed, just released." No tags, no explanation. It took her 7 minutes to call. I didn't answer. She called again, and again. Then came another message. "You're humiliating me. Please stop. This isn't fair. People are asking questions." People. That's what she cared about. The narrative. The optics. The version of her that everyone followed. The curated girl boss queen of subtle charm and powerful energy. She wasn't scared of losing me. She was terrified of losing the audience she built over the wreckage of our life. And that's when I knew my next post wouldn't be a photo. It would be the truth. Not public. Not petty. Just enough. Enough to remind her what it feels like when the one person who never asked for a show finally walks off stage and takes the spotlight with him. I was sitting in the same diner we once celebrated our 5th anniversary in when she finally came home. I had picked the booth near the jukebox, the one she always liked because it had the mural of the painted train on the wall. She used to make up stories about the people on it. Back then, I thought that meant she was imaginative. Now I wonder if she just enjoyed the idea of different lives. Ones where I didn't exist. My phone buzzed. Then again. Then once more. I didn't need to read the messages. I already knew the rhythm of panic. What I didn't expect, though, was the call from my neighbor. "Hey, Milo. I didn't want to get involved, but I think you should know. Your wife's at your house. She's been outside for a while." She knocked, then sat down on the steps. I paid for my sandwich, nodded to the waitress who'd known me since college, and walked out without rushing. I wasn't going to rush for her. Not anymore. When I finally pulled onto our street, no, her street now, I stayed parked at the far end. I could see her from the rearview mirror, pacing the porch with crossed arms and that same impatient energy she used to get when waiting for Uber drivers. She didn't look remorseful. She looked uncomfortable. That's how I knew it wasn't real regret. Regret doesn't make you fidget. It pins you down. She spotted me before I reached the curb. Her eyes lit up, not like someone seeing a loved one, but like someone who thinks they're about to win an argument. She rushed down the steps. "Milo." Finally. She said it like I had disappeared as some kind of stunt. Like I owed her a scene. I didn't hug her. I didn't smile. I just looked at her and said, "What are you doing here?" She blinked, confused. I live here." "Do you?" I asked. "Because last week, you were in Santa Monica. You booked a condo for 2. The week before that, you were tagged in 3 stories from a man who doesn't even remember my name. I'm not sure this is your home anymore. It's just a place with your mail still in it." Her lips parted like she had something sharp ready, but nothing came out. Silence. She wasn't used to that from me. I opened the door and stepped aside. She followed me in like she owned the air, but her confidence faltered once we were inside. She looked around. Everything was exactly as she left it, which meant I hadn't stayed here in days. No dishes. No unfolded laundry. No charger cords. Nothing alive. "What is this, Milo?" she finally asked. "This game you're playing?" That word again. Game. "You want the truth?" I asked. She nodded. So I told her. "I left because I saw the way you looked at him. Not in the photos. In the videos. You never smiled like that with me, not in the last 3 years. I left because you built a life outside this house and pretended I was still part of it. I was your safety net. A quiet place to fall back into after every secret trip and every convenient girls' weekend. You're blowing this out of proportion," she snapped. Nothing happened. I walked into the kitchen, pulled out a printed screenshot from the folder she forgot to delete, and laid it on the counter. Her in that swimsuit. Him biting her shoulder. That frozen, digital truth she once labeled private. She stared at it. Her eyes watered, but I couldn't tell if it was guilt or simply fear that she'd lost control of the story. "This isn't about cheating," I said quietly. "This is about the fact that I disappeared and you only noticed because it embarrassed you. If I hadn't posted anything, if I just vanished without noise, would you have cared? Or would you have just waited for your next trip and posted a new highlight reel with someone new?" "I made a mistake," she whispered. "People make mistakes." "Yes," I nodded. "But they don't make folders called for next time." She collapsed into a kitchen chair like her bones couldn't hold the truth anymore. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just walked upstairs, grabbed the envelope I'd sealed the night before, and handed it to her. Inside, a key to the rental cabin, a note that said I needed space to hear myself think. And printed beneath it, the lease to this house is in my name. But I've already packed her things into storage. You'll find the address below. She opened her mouth, maybe to beg, maybe to rage. I didn't wait to find out. I walked out, closed the door, and let her sit in the silence she never thought would come. And as I drove back to the cabin, the sky broke open in a summer storm. But for once, I didn't care. Because the man she forgot she married had finally remembered who he was before she turned him into background noise. It had been 5 days since she sat on our porch pretending to be confused. 3 since I handed her the envelope with her new address on it. And exactly 2 since she stopped calling. The silence wasn't final, though. I knew her. Cassie was never the type to surrender. She was the kind who paused, recalibrated, and came back with sharper angles. That's why, when I opened my email and saw her name in the sender field, I didn't feel relief. I felt a cold, familiar warning settle in my spine. She never emailed. Not unless she wanted something documented. Subject line. Can we still be civil? I didn't open it right away. I sat in the cabin with my feet up on the wooden railing, watching rain pelt the lake like it was chasing something that didn't want to be caught. The cabin had started to feel like mine now. No ghosts of our marriage in the corners. No scent of her perfume baked into the sheets. Just air that didn't lie to me. When I finally opened the message, it was everything I expected and somehow worse. I've taken some time to reflect. I don't think it's fair to either of us to continue this cycle of silence. I'm willing to acknowledge that what happened might have been hurtful to you, although I still stand by the fact that there was no real betrayal. Emotional distance isn't a crime. I never stepped out physically. You know me. She went on. That being said, I've spoken with my therapist, and we both agree that maybe some time apart will give us perspective. I'll be staying at a friend's place in Denver for a few weeks. Please don't make this uglier than it needs to be. I've also spoken to a lawyer, just to understand things better. No moves yet, but we need to be adults about this. That last line stuck with me like glass in my gums. We need to be adults about this. As if I had thrown a tantrum. As if I had stormed out over nothing. She'd rewritten the script in her head, and now I was the problem again. And the worst part? She genuinely believed it. But what broke me wasn't the message. It was what came after. A minute later, I got a ping, a notification from a shared cloud album we hadn't used in years. One of those automatic systems she must have forgotten was still synced. She uploaded a photo of herself, smiling, in a Denver loft, dressed like she was going out casual chic, hair curled just enough, a wine glass in hand. And beside her was a man, not Austin, a new one. The same charming arrogance, the same casual intimacy. Her shoulder leaning in, his hand resting just behind her back, not touching, but claiming space. And the caption was what shattered me. Starting fresh. It wasn't meant for me. It was meant for her audience. For the people who'd been watching her unravel. It was her announcement, subtle and curated, like everything she'd always done. I didn't even know what to feel. It wasn't sadness. That had dried up. It wasn't rage. That had burned out. What I felt was weightless. Like something had finally fallen off of me that I didn't even know I'd been carrying. And then I made a decision. I opened that letter she sent. I hit reply. And I wrote, "Thank you for the clarity. I've also spoken to someone. A real estate agent. The house is listed as of this morning. Any proceeds will be split evenly. I'll have the documents sent to your lawyer when you officially choose one. In the meantime, I'll continue staying out of the narrative you've created for yourself. Don't worry. I won't embarrass you. Your new beginning deserves peace. I'll build mine without pretending. No sign-off. No take care. Just the kind of honesty she never knew how to hold. Then I did something I never thought I would. I deleted the shared album. The old photos. The wedding highlights. The beach trips. The anniversary selfies that now looked like two strangers pretending to be in sync. Gone. Not out of anger, but because I didn't need them anymore. Later that night, I stood outside the cabin, barefoot in the wet grass, and let the last pieces of her float off into the dark. Her voice, her excuses, her curated smiles. She could have her fresh start. But mine? Mine would be real. No hashtags. No filters. No staged wine glasses. Just a man who finally left the echo chamber. I woke up on the last morning at the cabin to a sound I hadn't heard in years, birdsong. Not from a phone app or a white noise machine, but real ones. Somewhere in the trees, persistent and unbothered by my existence. For a few seconds, I didn't move. I just lay there in a quiet bed with clean air in my lungs and no one else's weight in my life. I had no unread messages, no missed calls, no new photos from someone else's highlight reel. Just sunlight crawling across the wooden floor and a pot of strong coffee brewing on the stove. And I realized something. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even broken. I had been waiting for pain to turn into rage or sorrow or something poetic and tragic. But instead, it had softened into something else, clarity. Cassie had messaged me once more the night before. A short, clipped text. "I'll sign whatever you send. Just please don't make this ugly." That was it. After all the drama, all the secrecy, all the manipulated narratives and gaslighting, she folded with a sentence. Not because she understood what she'd done, but because the spotlight moved. Her audience had stopped clapping. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Some stories don't end with slamming doors or fireworks. Some end quietly, like fog lifting in the morning and realizing there's nothing left to hide behind. By noon, I'd cleaned the cabin, packed the last of my things, and left the key under the rock the owner told me about. I didn't head straight home. I didn't have a home yet. But I wasn't lost. I drove up the coast, no destination. I stopped in small towns. Walked into places no one knew me. I sat in coffee shops with crooked chairs, ate greasy fries in diners with cracked leather booths, and I spoke to strangers who had no idea who I used to be. Eventually, in a little town called Elbridge, I found a bookstore with a hand-painted sign and a crooked front porch. I walked in, made a dry joke about the help wanted sign in the window, and the owner, an older woman with wild gray curls and ink-stained hands, hired me on the spot. "Anyone who still smells like pine and sadness probably knows how to sort paperbacks," she said. I laughed. Not politely. Honestly, it felt good. 2 months later, I rented a room above the bookstore. I shelved books, posted trivia nights, and started sketching again. I hadn't drawn in years. Not since she told me it was a hobby, not a life. But now, it was part of my life. No longer a placeholder in someone else's story, I started writing my own. And this story you've been reading isn't about a cheating wife. It's not about revenge. It's not even about pain. It's about a man who disappeared quietly and reappeared whole. She never found out where I went. She didn't need to. Because the truth is, I wasn't running from her. I was finally walking toward myself. And that one vacation I took? It never ended. It just became the life I never knew I deserved.